The CF Moto 450 MT is the kind of bike that makes you stop and check the price twice, because you're looking at a twin-cylinder adventure bike with long travel suspension, switchable ABS, spoked tubeless wheels, and real travel bike proportions for money that usually buys a simpler machine. That's the pattern in this list. These aren't random cheap alternatives. They're aimed right at the jobs people use to hand automatically to Yamaha, KTM, Aprilia, Suzuki, and Honda. We're sticking to paper specs, price, and equipment, all between 450 cubic centimeters and 650 cubic centimeters. And once you line them up side by side, the difference in quality is much smaller than most riders think. The new middleweight disruptors. Kicking off the list, the 450 MT is probably the clearest sign that Chinese brands finally understand this class. It runs a 449 cubic centimeter parallel twin. So, on paper, it already makes more sense for riders who split time between trails and longer road miles. You get about 44 horsepower, a 21-inch front and 18-inch rear wheel combo, close to 200 millimeters of suspension travel, traction control, switchable rear ABS, and a tank sized for real range. And one of the hardware names attached to bikes like this links back to machines that cost a lot more, which I'll get to later when we look at the parts list across the whole group. Put it next to the KTM 390 Adventure, and the difference gets clear fast. The KTM is sharp and trusted off-road, but it's smaller, down on engine size, and in some versions more street bias than people expect. The Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 brings charm and a new liquid-cooled motor, but it still leans simpler in overall spec. The 450 MT goes after riders who want something that reads more like a scaled-down Tenere than a commuter with crash bars. And when the price undercuts most Japanese and European choices, the value case gets hard to ignore. Then there's the Kove 450 Rally, and this one goes in a different direction. Instead of trying to cover everything, it goes straight at the rally crowd. The numbers grab people first. Low weight for the class, long suspension travel, a roadbook-style front tower look, rally ergonomics, and a fuel setup built for longer off-road stages. Kove also gave itself real proof here, because its factory bikes posted a 100% finish rate at Dakar, which gives the whole project more weight than a cool spec sheet alone. This isn't just a travel bike made to look like a racer. It's built like a real dirt bike first, but with lights and a plate so you can ride it on the street to get to the trails. That's why the Kove 450 Rally sits in a smart spot. A Honda CRF 450 RL stays lighter and carries Honda trust, but it's much more dirt bike than travel bike, which changes comfort, maintenance rhythm, and range. A KTM 450 Rally replica sits way above it on price, and a Yamaha Tenere 700 brings proven travelability, but more weight and less focus when the route gets technical. The Kove basically says, if you want Dakar style and geometry without exotic bike money, this door exists now. If the rally looks too intense, the Kove 510X is the calmer option. Same brand, different job. This one leans toward the everyday ADV rider who wants wind protection, a friendlier seat, better road comfort, and enough off-road ability for dirt roads and loaded travel. It still fits the dual-purpose brief, but it doesn't demand that every ride turn into a rally stage, which matters because a lot of riders love that idea right up until they spend 2 hours on the highway getting there. And this is where the old reliability argument starts to shift. Nobody honest is putting a newer Chinese brand on the same long-term proof level as Honda or Yamaha yet, because decades of ownership data still count. But dealer networks are growing, importers carry more stock, and online parts access is better. So you're not staring at a total mystery anymore. The 450 class now looks like the smartest place to watch, because once you get past badge habits, these bikes start punching right into the middle of what Japan and Europe used to own by default. 500 to 650 class that targets Japanese territory. Once you step into the 500 to 650 range, this is where Japanese brands usually win on common sense. And it's also where most riders ask the same thing. What happens when you need parts 2 or 3 years from now? I'll get to that later, because some of these brands are handling stock and support very differently now. The Voge 650 DSX goes right at this class, with a big single built around the old BMW-derived 652 cubic centimeter layout. That matters because Voge sits under Longines, And Lansin spent years building the 650 single for BMW's 650 GS. So this means the engine is a proven design, not just a random experiment. You get a bike that looks ready for luggage, already carries crash bars, and goes after the rider who wants to cross distance, fix basic things without a laptop, and keep the whole package affordable. Against a Kawasaki KLR 650, you can see why it clicks with practical riders. The KLR still owns the image of cheap, durable travel, but it stays pretty bare for the money in a lot of markets. The Voge answers with more modern equipment and a less dated feel while keeping the same simple single logic. Against a Suzuki V-Strom 650, the Suzuki gives you a smooth V-twin, but it also leans more road-biased and often needs extras before it looks fully travel-ready. A Tenere 700 still sits higher in the dirt rider order, though once price, included gear, and service simplicity enter the conversation, the Voge starts looking like the cheaper tool that still gets the job done. A different kind of value shows up with the CF Moto 650 MT. This one isn't trying to be a backcountry weapon. It's for the rider who spends most of the week on pavement, adds weekend gravel, and wants a bike that feels settled at speed without jumping into premium brand money. The 649 cubic centimeter twin is familiar territory, which helps, and the rest of the package usually stacks in its favor. Wind protection, TFT dash, ABS, touring-ready bodywork, and enough comfort gear to make longer rides easier straight from the dealer. That's where Chinese bikes keep changing the math. Japanese bikes often ask you to add the useful stuff later. Against a Kawasaki Versys 650, the overlap is obvious. Both chase riders who want commuting, highway miles, and rough road flexibility more than hard off-road use. The Versys still brings a cleaner reputation and wider support network, no question, but the 650 MT tends to answer with more standard equipment for less cash. The same thing happens against a V-Strom 650, because CF Moto often wins the showroom sheet when so much of the comfort and tech stuff already comes in the price. If you're the kind of owner who keeps a bike for years and rides everywhere, that lower buy-in can pay for luggage, tires, and service before the Japanese bike even reaches the same setup. Then you get the Benelli TRK 502X, which is probably the easiest one here to understand. It's heavier, softer off-road, and less dirt-hungry than some of the others, but it still makes sense for a lot of buyers because not everybody wants to chase deep sand or rocky climbs. A lot of riders want the adventure bike stance, upright comfort, wide seat, decent wind coverage, and the freedom to leave the pavement when the road turns bad. That's the TRK's lane, and it stays popular because it usually delivers a lot of motorcycle for the money without looking stripped down. But once you stop buying by badge memory and start checking the actual parts list, some of these Chinese and Chinese-backed bikes make the safe choice look expensive. Why these bikes are getting harder to ignore. Now look at where the class is heading, because the newest names aren't just copying old ADV formulas anymore. The Zonti's 703F is a good example. It's aimed right at riders who want the big bike look and a long equipment list without paying for a European badge. And on the showroom floor, it comes loaded in the way Japanese brands often avoid until you climb the trim ladder. You start seeing a large TFT screen, ride modes, switchable electronics, upside-down forks, radial brakes, spoke wheels, and bodywork that doesn't look cheap or unfinished. That's a different kind of pressure on the market because this used to be the stuff riders accepted as optional or premium. Then there's the Moto Morini X-Cape 650, and this is where the brand origin argument gets blurry fast. It wears an Italian name, much of the production and backing runs through China, and most buyers honestly care more about dealer support, spec, and parts flow than they do about where the corporate passport sits. The X-Cape fits this list because it shows how mixed the middleweight ADV space already is. Buyers are no longer choosing between pure European, pure Japanese, and pure Chinese camps. They're choosing between packages, and some of the packages with Chinese production behind them look very strong once you compare the bike itself instead of the story around the logo. Across all 7 bikes, the pattern gets hard to miss. A lot of them carry upside-down forks, Bosch ABS, J-Huan braking parts, or similar supplier hardware, TFT dashboards, handguards, aluminum swing arms, center stands, skid plates, luggage racks, and spoked wheels, sometimes tubeless. On a Japanese bike, you often start with a solid base and then spend more money finishing the bike into the version you pictured in your head. On many of these Chinese or Chinese-backed models, the shopping list already sits there before you leave the dealer. This is where the value becomes real, because you're comparing everything you get for your money, not just starting prices. Reliability still needs a straight answer, and this is really the legacy versus innovation split. Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, and Kawasaki still own the long record, dealer depth, and resale history. Nobody should pretend otherwise. But the old picture of Chinese bikes as unsupported throwaways doesn't fit the current market very well anymore, especially in this class. Importers are stronger, more brands keep regional warehouses, online parts fiches are easier to use, and common supplier components mean replacement paths are clearer than people think. That doesn't erase every risk, but it does shift the buying decision from badge faith to a more measured trade between proven history and better spec for the money. So if you sort these 7 by job, the dirt-first riders will keep looking hardest at the Kove 450 Rally and the CF Moto 450 MT. The travel crowd will lean toward bikes like the Voge 650 DSX, CF Moto 650 MT, and X-Cape 650. And riders who care most about loaded spec sheets will probably circle the Zantes. The old gap hasn't vanished. But in this part of the market, the smart money doesn't automatically wear the old familiar badge anymore. Chinese dual-purpose bikes still trail Japan on trust, but on spec, included parts, and real-world cost, they're already forcing the old names to work harder. Let me know in the comments which one you'd actually buy with your own money, and if you enjoyed this, please like.